Okay, I think it is time to start again. I think we've got our moderator, Sherry, with us. Hi, Sherry.
Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm really glad to be here. I've had a, yes. So welcome everyone back. I know that the session Connection Matters Part 1, I'm sure was fantastic. I've seen it before and I thought it was such great material that I asked Lauren and Michael to return again to do some of this great information, really how you can work with who's around you to improve the lives of children in your community. So Lauren, thank you. And Michael, thank you very much for continuing this. If you have questions, everyone, feel free to put them into the chat group, or if you'd like to put it in a question and answer, I will be here to moderate as need be. Lauren?
Yeah, thank you, Sherry. Yeah, we were told the folks that this is usually a very interactive presentation, which does a lot of breakout groups, which isn't really possible with this. So we are asking some questions and having folks, respond in the chat. So if you could help us monitor that chat, that would be awesome. Thank you. So we're going to start off with a video, and it is I messed with some stuff over the break, and I think it's a YouTube video. I think we can do YouTube videos. So we're going to try this. But this video will just show how having, people in your life to help build with brain development, how stress can affect the brain, and our role in building healthy relationships in community. So it's on brain development and stress and how relationships are important. So we'll see how this goes. We're going to try this out and see if it works. You guys just let us know if you can actually hear the video or not. And it's about 4 minutes. So hopefully we'll get this to work. Let's see here. Well, it worked during the break, so. Okay, there we go. One second. Copy. Thanks for bearing with me. Okay. Are we good? Okay, so that link to that video is in the chat if you guys are interested in viewing that again or using that. But the video just provides an excellent overview of the ideas it discussed about how ACEs and toxic stress impact the brain, but also how we can start discussing brain development, building resiliency, and the crucial role that safe, secure relationships play in both of those things. So let me get our PowerPoint back up. And let's see. Okay. Okay. So like I mentioned previously, the exciting part of the Connections Matter is that we will be talking a lot today about hope and how ACEs can be prevented. In November 2019, the CDC released a first of its kind report on the potential benefits of preventing adverse childhood experiences and trauma on adults' mental and physical health in the United States. This slide details some of the most important statistics in this report. It is important to link this information to how preventing ACEs should be a priority because it has physical, mental, and economic benefits to our nation's overall well-being. Some of the things that are being done to prevent adverse childhood experiences include home visiting, and I think somebody mentioned that earlier, trauma-informed policies and procedures, spaces where a person who's experiencing stress can go for a break, usually to calm down or process. And a lot of our schools, after-school programs, and child care centers utilize a calm down center for that. And then also return to the previous environment. Also, community education and awareness building and research about the impacts of ACEs, unified approaches of addressing the prevalence of ACEs between sectors, etc. So it's important to know that ACEs are almost entirely preventable, and all of them can be mitigated by the presence of a consistent, caring, safe adult relationship. The National Scientific Council on the Developing Child said that children's health is the nation's health. So we do have a discussion question here. How would reducing any of these health outcomes impact you, your family, and your friends, your community, and our country? If anybody wants to enter any ideas about how preventing these health outcomes could help your community or your country. And here the outcomes are, the research concludes that preventing ACEs could potentially result in a 44% reduction in depression, a 26% reduction in COPD, 24% reduction in heavy drinking, excuse me, and 12% reduction in coronary heart disease, which is a leading cause of death in the US. So if we were able to prevent some of these health outcomes, how would that impact your family, your community, your neighborhood, your school? Caroline says it would help with broken families, substance misuse, and divorce. Also, drop in toxic home environment for our students. Yes, and I think we saw earlier where there are negative academic and behavioral outcomes related to some ACEs. If we are able to prevent some of those ACEs and in return reduce some of those negative outcomes, such as like the toxic home environment would help, or reducing the toxic home environment would help kids be more able to function in school and maybe have fewer kids who are held back. Their on-time grade promotion would improve. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next slide. So right now we're looking at an acrostic for HOPE, and it's healthy outcomes from positive experiences. And the H, and then there are 4 different categories within these experiences. So one would be providing nurturing, supportive relationships. And that can be characterized by having secure attachment, a warm, responsive, sustained relationships, excuse me, physically and mentally healthy parents who can provide supportive care given their circumstances, and also trusting relationships with peers and other adults. Another category would be living, developing, playing, and learning in safe, stable, protective, and equitable environments. And this is characterized by having a safe and stable home, adequate nutrition and sufficient sleep, high quality learning opportunities for play and physical activity, and access to high quality medical and dental care. I also like to add high quality childcare and after school opportunities. Another category would be having opportunities for constructive social engagement and to develop a sense of connectedness. And this could be characterized by experiencing involvement in social institutions and environments, fun and joy in activities with others, success and accomplishments, awareness of one's cultural customs and traditions, and a sense of belonging and personal value. And then finally, there's learning social and emotional competencies, which is characterized by learning behavioral, emotional, and cognitive self-regulation, executive function skills, positive character traits, self-awareness, and social cognition. So these are some positive experiences that can lead to health outcomes. Excuse me. Let's move on to the next video. So of this section of the presentation is going to provide an overview of some basic information about the developing brain. While people might think we are only talking about young children when we say developing brains, our brains can actually change throughout our lifetime. So we're always talking about our adult brains too. Brain development is crucial during the early years of our lives and continues throughout the lifespan. So we will watch this video on brain development. And I'm going to have to do this little trick with the YouTube again, and I'll add it also to the chat box for those of you who can't view it on your work computers because of firewalls. So let's see if we can get this shared with you guys. Okay. Let's go back to our presentation. Okay, so that video really talked about how you know, our brains are developing, our early connections are really important, but you know, those synapses are strengthened through use, and we want to keep that in mind when we're talking about the upstairs brain and the downstairs brain in this next slide, because it has some important implications for kids or even adults who, you know, have stronger connections in their downstairs brain, but you know, we want to build more connections in the upstairs brain. So Dr. Dan Siegel introduced the concept of the upstairs and downstairs brain as a way to talk about how the brain works. The downstairs brain is the more primitive area of our brain that focuses on survival. This is the part of our brain that regulates breathing, heart rate, and other basic functions. The downstairs brain also houses the emotional core of our brain and our survival reaction to stress: fight, flight, or freeze. Each of us responds differently to stress. Our personal stress response is influenced by what skills we have managed to stress. We have to manage stress in our life experiences. All stress is not bad. Mild stress levels can help us learn how to cope with stressful situations and be more productive and successful. Higher levels of stress, such as an illness or losing a job, may, depending on what else is happening in our lives and the relationships we have to support us, lead to stronger stress response. The upstairs brain is the area of the brain where our higher functioning happens. So we're talking about decision making, setting priorities, understanding the difference between right and wrong, building relationships, and much more. The upstairs brain is not mature until around 25 years old, which helps us regulate the more impulsive, reactive downstairs brain so that we think first versus just acting on our emotions. When people are in their downstairs brain, it is difficult to control emotions, follow rules and directions, learn new things, and recall. Imagine a child living in a house with an abusive parent. Should we expect that child to come to an environment and behave like other kids who aren't experiencing that? Would that child have a difficult time focusing? Would that child be trusting of others? Imagine a person showing up to work who recently lost a parent or a spouse. What would we expect of them? So right now, I'd like you guys to think about an event that would put a participant, a person, maybe a kid in your classroom, in their downstairs brain. This is a real general example, but one example would be, seeing a bear in the woods. When you see a bear in the woods, what's your initial reaction? Do you engage in fight or flight? What do you want to do? And how do you react to someone giving instructions? After you are in a place of physical safety, how do you get from your downstairs brain to your upstairs brain? So if anybody wants to put anything in the chat about, what are some things that could put somebody in a downstairs brain, and then what could help move somebody from their downstairs brain to their upstairs brain? I haven't seen anything yet. In the next slide, we'll talk about some things that will help us move from our downstairs brain to our upstairs brain. So let's move on. I'm sorry I didn't progress through as should have. So this slide helps us to understand better how our brains work. When we have a downstairs brain response to a stressful situation, our brains release cortisol, which is what somebody mentioned earlier. And cortisol is a stress hormone, and when it's released continuously, it can have adverse impacts on our health. And this is what we call toxic stress. Adults and children metabolize cortisol at different rates. It can take 2 times as long for a toddler or teenager to metabolize cortisol than an adult. The body also releases a relaxation hormone called serotonin. Serotonin is the rest and digest chemical that gets us back into our upstairs brain. It helps prevent anxieties and depression. Serotonin is circulated in the body through deep breathing, like the kind we do when we exercise and meditate. We can help our bodies process cortisol by practicing decompression strategies like meditation, going for a run, doing yoga, and many other ways. So there are some recipes for decompression that I'm going to share with you. One is food. You might want to keep something to eat to offer a struggling person to calm down. That eating can help reduce cortisol and increase serotonin. Also, breathing and air. We can practice simple breathing exercises when we're not upset, that we can use when we are upset, so that we can utilize them whenever we're in those situations. And that's where meditation can come in. Water, offering an upset person a glass of water, again, getting something in their system to get the cortisol levels to lower and increase serotonin. And then time, having a rest, returning a person to a place that they can go when they're upset, not as a punishment, but as a way to, calm down, and then have them come back to resolve the issue. And that's really important with kids. As we mentioned earlier, it can take kids 2 times as long to process cortisol as an adult. So they need that extra time to rest, to calm down. So giving them space for that is very important. So let's see. Let's move on. So right now, if you guys want to share some ways that you distress that might be helpful for others, you can put those in the chat box. So does anybody have anything that helps them de-stress, maybe reduce those cortisol levels and increase serotonin? Okay, so Sherry likes to walk. I have to admit, I might have a somewhat unhealthy stress coping. I like to watch YouTube, or not YouTube. I like to watch, what is it? Netflix, that's what it is. We got some people who like to walk, talk to their sister, bake. We've got someone who likes to do yoga, color, video games. Michael mentioned he likes to play basketball. I need to get some more of those healthy coping skills to help me reduce my cortisol and increase my serotonin. Hobbies. Those are some great ideas. So our brains maintain plasticity, the ability to change habits and behaviors. And we saw that in the video about the neuron development. And this happens throughout our entire lives. However, it's much easier to replace bad habits with good behaviors earlier on in life. One of my favorite quotes is from Frederick Douglass, and it's easier to build healthy children than repair broken men. And so that's really what we're focusing on here. So our brains are shaped by experiences throughout our lifetime, both positive and negative. The younger the brain, the greater the plasticity or capacity to change. But the good news is that we now know that the adult brains can retain much of the plasticity of the developing brain, including the ability to repair damaged regions. Our brains can reactivate connections that have been inactive through our lifetime and create new connections, just like an electrician working on electrical circuits of a house. I don't know if you've ever seen like the play phone, but that's a good example of how our brains can be can adapt and change over time through, exercise and using different areas of our brain. Okay. So our brains have the capacity to make trillions of connections, like branches of a thick evergreen tree. A healthy brain has lots and lots of branches connecting and communicating with one another. What helps brains build lots of new connections? It's supportive, warm relationships with caring, trusting adults. This image helps us to understand what can happen in a developing brain. There's too much stress and too few relationships. Our brains are very sensitive to stress. High stress levels and prolonged stress can reduce the number of brain connections being made, and especially in the absence of supportive relationships that help us cope with stress. And that would look like the picture on the right. Infants and children's brains are particularly sensitive to stress because their brains are making lots of new connections. Gaps in resources are felt more intensely in times of difficulty. Much like having a fire escape plan before a fire, it is important to understand where our supports are and what gaps we have before we are in need to more readily utilize them when the time comes. Knowing what resources are available in our communities helps us to support others and fill a gap during a time of struggle. So right now, if you guys could, in the chat box, just list some resources in your community that could be helpful for children and families, particularly in a time of struggle. .4-H youth development programs. So those are caring, warm places where kids can build relationships. Church, Goodwill, DNR. I know just within our community, we've been able to develop some good relationships with the kids through our church and through our after-school programs, the library, VBS summer camps. Those are all great places where families can find resources to help during times of stress and struggle. So the family is the child's first and foremost environment. And if we want to help children, we really need to be able to reach out to their parents and meet them where they are in terms of their life experiences. And right now, Michael's going to take over, and he's going to talk some about developing those relationships. So we're going to switch up. I'm going to let him pull up.
All right. So we're going to be talking about developing the relationships in here. So family is and if y'all don't know, I've talked about this, me and Lauren are married, and I'm walking to her office and I'm upset because there's no photos of me, of our babies or anything. I know this is a brand new office, but it hurt my soul. The only photo is a photo of her and some old coworkers. I'm gonna get over it, but we have a baby and we have a 12-year-old. So our baby, she is 1.5 years. And I think in this last 6 months or so, we've watched like the mind just explode. You know, she can't talk yet, you know, but she's verbalizing things. She'll say words. I think yesterday she said, "Thank you, Kenneth." I know. Step it up. I do. Step it up.
It's just tough, man. You know, it's just tough. Michael has all the pictures on his phone, so I really need him to print some off so I can put them up.
They're actually on our shared Google Drive.
Well, I didn't know we had a shared Google Drive.
It's on the front.
Okay.
So we're gonna work through this. She forgot it's there, so we're gonna get it right and stuff like that. But so part of it is watching her grow and watching her develop, and it's reminding me as we're talking about developing these relationships. It's important for us to be able to create a healthy environment for her to grow and for her to develop and for her to sustain. So family is a child's first and foremost environment. If we want to help kids, then we need to reach out to parents and to meet them where they are in terms of their life experiences, to provide the supports they need to develop caring, supportive relationships with their children. This is a huge aspect in our after-school settings on a day-to-day basis. And we know that's the hardest nut to crack, is to build these relationships with the parents. But the more connections that we make and the more relationships, the better it is for the child's developing brains. I use that analogy of the triangle offense. If you're old Phil Jackson, Bulls, even Lakers fan, the triangle offense is, you know, there's a rotating, I'm getting nerdy right now. There's a rotating offense that no matter where you were, there was a triangle of people that you could pass to. And I always say, if we can get the family, we can get the school, we get the after school providers all on the same page. We have the kid in the middle who has all the support services in there. So what we're going to look at is that there's a 2-generational approach. It's focusing on creating opportunities and support for both the parents and the children together. We'll share in here where there's more information about that from the Ascend and Aspen Institution. And we'll kind of touch on this over the next couple of slides as we talk about building their resiliency. As I mentioned earlier, in an infant's brain, it doubles in size the first year of life expectancy, approximately 80% of its adult size by the age of 3. But the capacity of our brain to develop and change is far from over. Whenever we learn something new, we can make new brain connections. And you are doing it right now. Everyone's brain is learning from social interaction with each other. That's why connections matter. So I wanted to take a moment for us to discuss, and the question is going to be, what's one thing you can do to build relationships? This is a good one that we can just put into the chat box there. What are some things that we can do to build relationships with that? One of the best things about the triangle offense is that it always allowed for great, transitional defense. Let's go. Kenneth, I don't know who you are, but I feel like we're just best friends right now.
We need to connect.
We'll have to connect on this, yes. Because they move right down the court. So, okay, back to the question. For developing relationships, and he's from Chicago. Let's go. We're gonna talk. We're going to exchange some information on here. I'm not on social. I'm on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter. We'll talk. But dinner together, stone soup, getting meals together. I think I always like cooking meals together. That's always something that takes time. You're building and developing. Some of the things that we can think of there: spending time on a game night. It's a really good one. Spending time with a person.
I like this one on the slide. It says putting down our smartphones and doing something non-electronic with a child. So we mentioned we have a 1.5-year-old, and we're really taking seriously the medical recommendation of not having that child exposed to screens until 2 years old. And so she does not watch TV.
No.
It's a lot of effort to, but we're always interacting with her and building those relationships. And so are the caregivers who are taking care of her, because she's not engaging with the TV 2-3 hours a day.
She has $87,000 worth of Montessori toys, just wooden blocks all over the place. It's not that much, but it feels like that much. We've noticed a huge difference in allowing her to have direct and face-to-face engagement with us, and it's made a huge difference in her life. So building and developing those relationships, doing a game together, hiking together. We're taking our kids on Sunday to a TBT basketball tournament that's going to be hosted here in Charleston. So it's going to be fun for us to go to the game with them, sit down and eat, conversate. These are opportunities that we can all do to build healthy relationships. On our next slide on here, what do we mean by relationships on here? Supportive interactions that can make a compassionate connection with one another, and close, secure connections formed through emotional bond. These are things that we mean by building the relationships. There are different kind of relationships that we can build. Brief supportive relationships are those with acquaintances, people we may know from the workplace. They're generally positive, but lack a depth of knowledge of interaction. E.g., our neighbors, my 4-year-old, or 4-year-old who refers to as, a cowboy, a hat friend or something like that, somebody you may see in passing. Close and secure relationships are those that we have with people that we trust. These are the people that we go into good and bad times with. We feel comfortable being vulnerable with these people. Children may not have these in their household or their homes. The key to these relationships and these secure relationships is that there must be trust. One recipe that they use for trust is being able to have eye contact with someone, appropriate touch, time. Time is the hugest asset that you can use. You can never get your time back, so it's the most valuable thing that you have. And also allowing yourself to be vulnerable around a child, expressing that you may also have some of the same stresses and concerns and such. Self-regulation, the act of being able to manage your thoughts and the feelings, are developed over a lifetime and learning through our close, secure relationships with other people. With children, this supportive relationship and interaction is called co-regulation. Co-regulation requires warm, supportive relationships between the caring adults and the children, structuring the environment and coaching self-regulation skills. The important skill requires relationships. Becoming trauma-informed helps us see all people through the lens of compassion. We strive to make every connection with others a positive encounter, treating every person with respect and with dignity, rather than making assumptions about a person's experience, will, or intent. We strive to understand the person better. So in our chat box there, we're trying to keep you guys engaged with this. Let's kind of discuss, how can we make brief connections more impactful so they help to build long-term bonds? How can you make brief engagements brief connections more impactful so that they build long-term bonds? One thing that I'm learning to do, my memory is terrible, and we have a lot of after-school kids. I told our kids, when I go to my Risen City site for after school, I'm there, and I know a lot of those kids because they go to our church, they're in the neighborhood, they're all at our house. But my kids are always taken back when they start the after school program. They're like, why are you not here every day? And I have to remind them. I said, I serve as operations officer. And I remind them, I said, we have 15 after school programs in 3 different counties. So I've got 680 some kids between all of these counties. I said, it's a lot of names, a lot of things to remember. But one thing I'm trying to do is in these brief connections I'm making to the kids is that I try to say their name. I try to remember their last name. I try to remember their first name. Last names are a whole lot easier for me to remember because first names are all over the place. But calling a kid by their name can bring a depth of relationship that they may not have. We know that we're all like, hey, buddy, hey, friend, how you doing, brother? Good to see you, sister. Calling a kid by their name can build a healthy relationship because you're making a interpersonal relationship with them and can help build long bonds in their lives. That's something small that we can do. Some of the other stuff on here that we may say is
find a commonality rather than a difference.
That's
so
really
finding
good.
Something that you have that you share.
It's a really huge aspect.
Any other ideas? I think maybe if you have brief interactions with kids, remembering something from the initial conversation and following up with them, and just remembering something about them the next time you see them.
Yes.
Either cheerleader, teach them. They can teach you their favorite game. So doing something that they enjoy rather maybe than something you enjoy. Yes. So connecting with them on their level.
It's a huge aspect. Taking mind in their interests. These are really, really good ones here. So in this next one, we're going to see here a teacher who does simple interactions that build connections with the students. It's a really good video from ABC News. We're going to get it up here. So hopefully you all will be able to watch it. I'm going to put it in the YouTube also. I'm sorry, it's in the YouTube link also. So I struggle to remember people's last names, much less the first names. He's got 20 different handshakes that I can imagine he has to learn every single year with the kids. And then as new kids come in, he builds and develops these handshakes. And then thinking about new kids who come in and a new classroom setting and such like that. I don't know if he's eating his Wheaties in the mornings, what he's doing with his brain. I need to know what he's got going on so I can get my memory right in life. So if y'all know what he's eating, let me know some of that stuff is. But that's a great way for these kids. And I can imagine they go home, they're excited, and they know that he is very much so engaged in their lives because he's taking the time to build that interpersonal relationship. So on our next slide, we see here, this says, science tells us that interactions that strengthen the capacity of families and communities to protect young people from disruptive effects of toxic, severe stress are likely to promote healthier brain development and enhance physical and mental well-being. We know that what we do to create caring communities to support families gives us the great return on our investment. Building healthy brains is the foundation for healthy, successful children and communities. The resiliency of an individual depends to a great extent on their relationship and their community. The more we learn about resiliency, the more we recognize that the systems around us, families, schools, neighborhood, churches, friends, community, influence both children and adults' ability to be resilient. Again, it's why connections matter. We must build these skills in ourselves and children by teaching children directly and modeling resilience building behaviors. We must work to dispel the myth that no matter what kids experience, they will be okay, because kids are resilient. And remember that resiliency is built through relationships. Ensure that you walk participants through this. We're going to kind of teach you guys what it means to walk through defining what resiliency looks like, and the adaptability and the ability to cope and thrive in these relationships. One thing that I do want to kind of touch on is in the last couple of within this last year and such, we talk about the value of mentors, the value of individuals. We believe it takes a community, it takes a village of all persons to be able to help facilitate healthy communities and healthy relationships. We have people that ask all the time, what can I do if I don't know a kid? One thing that we do with our church is we mentor kids, but we say, somebody says, well, I want to help the kids, what can I do? I'm like, well, can you cook a meal? Can you provide something maybe to a facility or institution that can help build a better community? I think one thing that we mentioned about with ACEs and trauma is that if kids don't have access to the healthcare needs, that ties in to some of the issues that they face in life down the line. So it takes tons of individuals to build communities that can build resiliency. So, and our next one here is cultivating resiliency, learning how to ask for help, learning to accept help, developing a sense of belonging, and developing friendships, trust, and hope on here. So what we want to do is kind of looking at here in the group question. One of the questions that we want to ask you guys, if you all could put it into the chat box in here, you want to answer this one that says, by a show, or that's not by a show of hands, but if you want to throw a check mark in there or something like that, how many of you all are willing to ask for help? If you guys want to put a check mark, you can put yes in there. How many of you all are willing to ask for help? And as professionals, we know it is hard for us to ask for help sometimes. Many of us, we believe, and I'll even say it's easier for me sometimes to do it myself or to figure it out on my own, or we don't want to show that we need to ask for help because it can be shown as a sign of weakness. So how many of you guys in the chat box can indicate, if we're willing to ask for help? From what I'm seeing, nobody asked for help. We got work on this, guys. Okay. I think that's a part of being able to show some aspects of vulnerability when we start to ask for help. So the next question we have is, how many of you all are willing to accept the help? How many of you all are willing to accept the help? How many of us are willing to accept help? And then even a good follow-up to that is why? What are the qualities we seek when we accept help from someone? That's a huge aspect that we have to think about, is that when somebody may offer us help, we have to think to ourselves, is this someone who's trustworthy? Is this someone who has my best interest in mind? Is this person going to be an addition to what is going on as opposed to take something away from what I'm actually doing? So these are the questions that we think about. And what are the qualities of someone who we are willing to accept help from? So one aspect for me is, for me to accept help from somebody, I really have to have a mindset that they have not their own personal interest in mind, but those who are around us, those who we are helping, that they have that in mind as their first priority, especially with working with kids and young people and things like that. So we must see that they must be reliable and trustworthy. It's the things that we're seeing in the chat box there. So trust is one of the biggest things on there that is huge and such like that. And another aspect of that is that we don't ask for help sometimes because we don't want them to make us feel like we're stupid. Sometimes when we ask for help, people will demean those in the way that they give the help back to those. So you must have, I think it says respect for them then there. A lot of the times I have to feel some sort of connection. That is very true. It's hard to ask. I couldn't imagine asking a stranger for help in a lot of scenarios and situations and things like that. So asking for help helps us to build resiliency by helping us to know that people are there that will support us. And we can learn new ways of coping and problem solving. Asking for help from others shows children and other adults that it's okay to ask for help. As a leader in our community, as people who run organizations, it's very important for me, and I believe for us, as I'm working with young directors, I'll ask intentionally many a times, I'll say, let me go and ask my executive director about something. Let me get their input. So it actually creates a culture that doesn't make our organization feel as though we have to have all of the answers. I believe I had a meeting with our city, and I think one of our deputy mayors said something that stuck with me. He said, I don't want to be the person in the room who has all the answers. And I thought to myself, I said, that's a good aspect in the mindset to have sometimes, because then you are open to be able to receive from other people within your room great ideas and ways that you can go about manifesting problem solving solutions and skills. And we need our kids to see and to know that they are open to ask for help. So asking for help shows others and students it's okay to ask for help. People generally want to help others. And how can we ask for help? These are really good ways that we can ask for help in cultivating resiliency. You can make statements like, would you please help me with? I think offering somebody the opportunity to help and to build and engage is a huge thing. Practice it as a group when you guys have individual time also. So with children, what we're wanting to do as we're building this resiliency, as we're looking at how do we model for them to ask for help, teaching children how to ask for help is an important thing. Thanking them for asking. That is a huge follow-up. If a student asks you for something, thanking them for being vulnerable and opening themselves up for asking for help. Many times we see it sometimes, a kid or somebody will ask for help, and unfortunately attitudes may be like, oh my God, you should be able to do this. Why can't you do this? And the kid may feel demeaned when they ask for help. For them to open themselves up and show their vulnerability and to ask for help, we need to reward them with some kind of positive feedback for them asking for that help. Role model behavior by asking them for help. When a child asks you for help, don't do it for them, but empower them by helping them to build the skills or knowledge needed to resolve the issues that come into play. Don't rescue or enable. That's the thing. As a parent, I'm realizing that you kind of just swoop in and you're just like, oh baby, let me fix it for you. Oh, let's do this. Thinking about stopping and saying, let me give you some clues as to how you can fix the situation or problem solve or engage in healthy mindsets to build together ways to fix these issues. Those are the big things that we want to do in those situations. So learning to accepting help. So overviewing is accepting the accepting help that is offered can also be a challenge. So oftentimes it comes from a place of pride that people may be poorly judged with all of this. So there's a lot of information that's in here about, cultivating the resiliency in this slide. We'll have to share some of this with you guys as a backup, because I know we're going to be kind of close on time here at just 12:13 right now. We have some more slides to kind of get through. And then there's also on here, this kind of continues with this cultivating resiliency. We'll share this with you guys as a follow-up, because there's a lot of information in here. But it talks really about developing empathy, being able to empathize with a person's situation, seeing that person's perspective or feelings, expressing your own feelings also with the child, appreciating a culture and ethnic heritage, working together as a team, and giving back. And there's some activities that are in here. We'll have to make sure to share these with you all. These are new slides to the ACES study that we do. These are newer, and generally we usually have about 4 hours to do these. So we're going to try to hit some of the more important things right now as we kind of finish this out on here. So I think what we'll go ahead and slide over to is the healing power of relationships with children. As we're finishing this out, we want to give you guys some opportunity to talk in the last 5 minutes also, and to ask us any questions and such. But one of the last slides we'll go over is the healing power of relationships with children. Relationships can be so powerful and protective that they can even prevent physical health problems that are more likely to occur in stressful environments. All of the examples in this slide were part of a study that demonstrated how supportive maternal caring reduced the likelihood of stress-related illness, such as asthma, among students growing up in homes with domestic violence, where there are higher risk of being diagnosed with asthma due to the stress they are experiencing in the home. Nurturing relationships can be a game changer even during tough times. Additional benefits of this are improved physical health, decreased behavioral problems, higher educational achievements, improved employment productivity, decreased social service environment, and decreased criminal justice environment. And these studies, criminal involvement on there. And the studies highlights how little things can make a large difference in a child's life. Despite the limitations of contact and time, we can make huge differences in children's lives by sharing a laugh or providing support to these students. So we have on here just the healing power of relationships with adults, just recovering more quickly from tough times. These are things that we noted with COVID that our adults are dealing with. And these relationships are not only to help them to cope and recover from stressful situations, but they also improve our quality of life. When we have strong connections and supportive relationships in our lives, we have better physical and mental health, and we even live longer, richer and cheerful lives and such. So in our last slides that we have here, helping parents help their kids. It's an approach that addresses the needs of the children without helping their parents, usually leaves either the parent or the children behind. When we reach out and support children and their parents together, we see far greater results than the sum of their parts. This goes back to the statement I made earlier about a two-generational approach, recognizes that when we reach out and connect with the parents, we have a powerful effect on their children. Recognition of this importance of the two-generational approach has led to more effective whole family interventions that work with parents and children. These interventions address a wide range of issues, including substance abuse, mental health illness in a family, and poverty. Examples of this are there's a Head Start program in Tulsa, Oklahoma that is helping parents earn their degrees in healthcare field while their children are on Head Start. Why would they make this investment? Because while we know that investing in an early childhood education will yield 7 to 10% annual return on an investment and reduce the social cost, we also understand that the parent who completes a college degree doubles their earned income. A $3,000 difference in the parent's income when the children are young translates to 17% increase to a child's future earnings. So it makes economical sense to look at the holistic aspect of how we can bring about this two-generational approach. So there's a lot more items that are in here.
These are just, you can skip all the last ones. You just need to get to that.
Yeah, the 57, yeah. So what we're going to do is we want to leave you guys at a 12:18 right now. What we'd like for you guys to do is, if you have a QR code, if you could take a minute there's a survey that's on here just about the ACEs, West Virginia ACEs Coalition, and also just a survey about the presentation that was made today. If you want to stay connected with us, we'll have to see about getting our information to you all, as we do plan on offering more of the 4-hour longer training sessions online. This is more of a shorter than the amended version of this, but there's such great resources online, and we really have a passion to be able to continue to inform you all. But if you all could take a minute to use the QR code that's on there to take a minute to do our survey. It helps us out tremendously. Or you can type in that link that's on there on SurveyMonkey. We appreciate the time that you guys have with us. And Lauren's going to put mine and hers information in there so you all can get a hold of us via email and online. And also, if you have any questions, please feel free to put those into the chat box as we are closing out.
So the key takeaway from this is really that Relationships are so important in developing protective factors with children. And we want to look at the resources that our community has to help build those relationships and in turn protective factors. And that we can make a difference in the lives of a child through building relationships, through brain development, and also providing other resources to help them to have positive outcomes in their life.
That was really wonderful. Does anyone have any final questions or comments? Go ahead and put those in the chat and or the question answer. And don't forget to do those, use the QR to do that survey if at all possible.
Yeah, this is different than maybe the conference survey that they have. This is, so we were trained through the West Virginia ACEs Coalition. And so this is their survey for folks who go out and do the training that they provided for us. Thank you guys for joining us. We really appreciate you guys, and I hope you guys have a good rest of the conference. I'll leave this up for a few more minutes. We're at past time, but if you guys still need to get this link or scan the QR code, I'll leave it up for a moment. It was so nice to interact with you through chat.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.